I was trying to say, you know what, I'm going to actually be vulnerable. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be sort of not try and push my feelings down. And then you swatted those down.
I snapped at you and I was like, do not minimize my pain and my experience. I am feeling the pain. I know how I'm feeling.
And then I was getting even more angry. I wanted to shut myself down even more, reserve myself, pull myself back emotionally.
I'm feeling like such a terrible girlfriend.
No.
Right
It has
now.
nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. I generally downplay everything. You can very much feel like you need to overcompensate and be like, no, this is really serious, because when something gets really hard, something kind of really bad happens, I'm like, everything's going to be fine. Everything's great. Oh, that's exciting. There's sort of this famous line, would you rather be right or be happy? You know? And it's something that I've known, right? I mean, early on in my, in my life as a partner to somebody, like it's one of the first things I remember like a therapist telling me or reading in a relationship book, like, you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Your choice.
I want to be right.
Yeah. And, while I knew it, it wasn't something that I could fully incorporate into my life until I just kind of grew up a little bit. And I was like, you know what? Being right isn't that important, because I also know, like, one of my favorite books ever I read a couple years ago is called Being Wrong, by Catherine Schulz. I recommend it highly. And it just really kind of brought home that I'm actually wrong most of the time, and if you kind of look at it, anything like, even on bigger, there's the bigger things or the little things. There's all these assumptions that we make. Like even last night we were having a conversation about the impact of plastic bags on the environment. And the reality is that that's there are different studies that have shown different things, and we know generally plastic, the use of single-use plastics is bad. But when you're not using single-use plastic bags, what are you using instead?
And is that good for the environment?
And how, that is also going to have an impact, right? Even cotton bags have an impact on the environment. Someone has to grow it. Cotton tends to be a very highly pesticide-heavy crop. So then, is it organic? It still uses a ton of water. So anytime you're looking at an issue, it's not always cut and dry. Science is always changing. The way we see things in our relationship is changing because we grow, we learn new things. And it's hard to say, oh, we were wrong about like plastic bags, 60 years ago. It was just what we had available to us as information was different. We move on in our relationships. More people do studies about happiness and relationships. We can learn from others. And then we spend time in our relationship, and we actually get better each time we do it. We make a mistake and we grow from it. And so I think this idea of being right is like, actually, we're just wrong most of the time. And therefore trying to be right is a little bit of a fool's errand that doesn't really make anybody happy.
No, it doesn't. And I feel like when I realize that I'm wrong, I'm thinking that I must have been right.
Right.
To come to this realization that I'm wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
So, but realizing that there's some humbleness that comes with it, if you're humble. But some people that have like that transition can be very difficult. Like actually accepting that I am wrong, and I'm not always right. So some people get angry or like they're just like accepting that I'm wrong is like not very easy, especially when for people who are so opinionated about their right, so do you come back and you're like, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. Like now I realize I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And yeah, that's just
I think they're kind of like two sides of that. One is that you're so sure you're right? And then you get in an argument. Maybe you realize you're wrong. A couple things can happen. One, you're like, you might go back and say, but I was right in certain areas in order to sort of justify your own being wrong. The other thing is to say, I was sure I was right. You've proven to me I'm wrong. I was wrong. Now that I know what you've told me, I've come to see it your way. I'm right again immediately. So then we actually we spend most of your time being right because you're right until you're wrong. And then as soon as you're wrong, then you realize that, and now you're right again.
True, but can you realize that you're wrong without necessarily mean like I'm right? Like if it's a conversation and you're right, and you convince me that, you know what, your theory, your facts are wrong, and then I'm like, okay, I accept, like I am wrong. I'm not right.
No, but okay, but you become right now when you've seen it, and of course we're going to move on and we're going to come to new understandings of different things. But here's the thing: is and I think this is one of the major things that shifted for me in relationship, and I think it's one of the things that when I bring it to this relationship, I feel like this was so important in our happiness together. Which is, I used to think that if I was wrong, that was like a shameful thing. You know, like I want to be right. But something shifted for me, and it was this, that if you and I get into a disagreement, and at the end I come and I say, you know what, you were right. Guess what happens? I actually grew from that experience. If I'm right all the time, or I believe I'm right, or I don't want to admit I'm wrong, what I'm kind of saying is I know everything and I don't need to grow. So if you and I get in an argument and you prove me wrong, I just learned something I didn't know before. You didn't learn anything new from that situation, but I did. And that's what's really beneficial. So even when I'm, like in this case with with your leg thing, like, yeah, I was right, but I also actually wanted to look and see how was I wrong so that I can actually gain something from that too. And how I was wrong is that, you know, I often go to that everything is going to be fine. And so I can make you or others around me feel like I'm minimizing your challenge, you know?
Yeah. And I think too is like when you, in like other things, like in my life, like I'm trying to not be right about certain things, and just not necessarily being right, just not have a very like hardcore opinion about things. Just because I feel like mostly as I'm getting older, is like I realize that the things that I was so right about, in a couple of years, it tends to like change.
Yeah, you have a different perspective. You grow up.
Yeah. So in like even the way I communicate, I'm just like, is that, you know, like I believe that that's the right way to communicate or to listen. And then I read a book and it's like, okay, that is, you know, that is no longer the way to communicate, you know? So.
And even kind of going back to this right and wrong thing too, like I think we might have mentioned this a couple weeks ago when we had this argument where you snapped at me, right?
Okay.
And then I was really upset by how you spoke to me. And to me, I realized that when we got into it, and I was like, I really want an apology from you. I really felt like the way you spoke to me was not cool. But at the end, you basically offered a conditional apology. Like, I'm not going to apologize unless you see it the way that, you know, unless you understand where I was coming from too. And I was like, no, I don't even want the apology. And we had this kind of like this big thing. And at a certain point, like what was so kind of great for me was I was just getting so frustrated. And then I kind of got to realize that, yeah, I might not want you to speak to me that way. But what that triggered in me was that I often react when somebody snaps at me or yells at me, and not the way that I want to. Now, it's very different if I'm attacking or I'm kind of like ready for battle. I learned so much from that particular day where we had that happen, because if I'm in a battle with somebody, I'm kind of like battle ready, then I can get into it. But if I'm thinking like, oh, everything's fine, or I'm doing the right thing or whatever, and then someone comes along and just snaps at me or yells at me or whatever, and I get taken off guard.
Let's just stop there. Your definition of yelling is very different from my definition of yelling.
Right.
So for me that day, I was like, I did not yell at you. I raised my voice at you because you had me yell.
Yes. Right. So yes. She raised her voice, or you snapped. We've agreed that it wasn't yelling to you.
Yep. It was not yelling. I raised my voice. I was not using my quiet voice.
But you did snap.
I did snap.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So that threw me off, and it kind of threw me into a tailspin and made me really angry with you and all this stuff. And what I ultimately had to come to, it took me 24 hours of kind of this, like being just discontented and me trying to basically express where I was coming from and why it was important for me to get an apology, was that I actually allow somebody else's snapping at me or raising their voice at me to throw me off my game. So in that moment we're talking about, I'm like, wait, I didn't have to have that reaction, you know? So it's not necessarily excusing what you did. It doesn't matter. That's your thing. For me, coming to realize rather than trying to prove in that conversation that I was right, my big aha was even in this situation, I was also bringing something to the table that I needed to change, that I needed to grow from. You know, my reaction to you, my reaction to how you do something if I perceive you to be wrong, is like, it's so important. It's what I have control over. Like, and now I was like, I think I might have joked about this before. Like, I'm excited for the next time that you snap at me and yell at me.
I am so right that it's not going to happen
No,
again.
you did actually out there
Where?
when you snapped at me where I was like, you're not injured. And you were like, don't do this.
No,
Right?
what I did was I looked at you and I said, I am in so much pain. Do not minimize my pain. That I don't
and
consider.
don't say anything. You didn't really snap.
I did
That's
not
true.
snap.
But you were very stern and you were angry with me.
Yeah, here I am,
get
not
it.
able to walk,
No,
and
no,
you're just telling me like
I'm not
you're
accusing
actually.
you of it. I'm just saying that was the closest thing that we've had since then over the last month, where there was like this moment that you maybe you didn't snap, you raised your voice a little bit. I don't know how to
Oh my God.
say this properly now. But like where I was like, oh, I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to the next time somebody yells at me or takes me off guard.
It's not gonna be me because I am
'Cause you're
so
so
right.
good now.
I am becoming. Yeah,
You are
I am.
you are
I am
bodhisattva. You are
I am meditating. I am gonna speak with my calm voice for the rest of my life.
And if we were ever wondering when the second coming of the Messiah, it's happened.
It's gonna be this black woman.
So for me to like basically say that you hurt my feelings was hard because as men, we know it's not cool to have your feelings get hurt. That's not really okay. So even that, just saying, you know what, I just really want to be honest, like that really actually hurt. And then I did, and you rejected that, which hurt even more because I was kind of doing this thing that I was trying to say, you know what, I'm going to actually be vulnerable. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be sort of not try and push my feelings down. And then you swatted those down. And then I was getting even more angry. I wanted to shut myself down even more, reserve myself, pull myself back emotionally, all these things. That
Oh
are
my
like,
God, I'm feeling like such a terrible girlfriend.
no.
Right
It has
now.
nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. The fact that I felt shut down, that I withdrew, it's like I'm sure that any man listening to this understands what it's like to get into a fight, try to be emotional, try and be really authentic, and then get shut down again. Now you're like, well, now look, this is exactly why we're taught as young boys, don't show your emotions, don't be soft, don't be all these things, because I have to lock this away, because as soon as I become, I express my honest emotions, I am going to get kicked while I'm down, and I don't actually know how to handle that. So for me, that whole experience was amazing. And I am, like I said, I'm looking forward to the next time, even I'm in a working situation with someone who has sort of more power than I do in a situation where I can be like, where I get shut down out in the world. In our relationship, getting shut down or whatever, yelled at or whatever, like that's just an opportunity for me. And I think I learned so much from that moment that I'm actually excited to put it to the test.
Yeah, I think for me, like what that moment brought, and I wish next time that when I'm right and you're wrong, and you bring your vulnerability to me, that I'm going to be able to hold it better than I did, and not shut you down. But now I can't shut you down.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
I learned something, but I'm sure I have a lot more to go.
But I think in the world, like when I'm having a conversation with someone, and I am sure, like I want to leave the possibility that I'm actually never 100% sure. So there's a 50% chance that I might be wrong, and there's a 50% chance that I might be wrong, and
Wrong or wrong? I think
sorry.
That's 100% chance you're wrong. That'll make life very easy for me moving forward.
Yeah, so there's a 50% chance of being right and wrong.
Yeah.
And I am open to being wrong or being right.
So thank you for joining us this week. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen or watch. And you can also find us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is at the Interracial Couple. So come and follow us there. And we'll look forward to hanging out again next week.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in and to this podcast where I was all wrong.
Yeah, welcome to the Interracial Couple Podcast, where I'm Cera, I'm wrong, and I'm Matthew, I'm right. Look at that, and it even rhymes. It's perfect.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.